Stop whatever you are doing right now and pay attention. Because if you are an American driver, what you are about to learn could literally save you thousands of dollars in fines, points on your license, and even the loss of your ability to drive. Starting immediately, sweeping new highway rules are taking effect across the United States. And here is the part that should genuinely terrify you. Most drivers who will be fined in the coming weeks will not be reckless. They will not be speeders. They will not be dangerous people behind the wheel. They will be ordinary, responsible, careful American drivers who simply did not know the rules had changed. Drivers who merged onto highways the same way they have for 30 years. Drivers who parked in the same spot every Tuesday morning for a decade. Drivers who held their phone at a red light without making a single call. Tonight, we are breaking down every single new highway rule, who is at risk, and exactly what you must do before your next drive to protect yourself. Stay with us because this information could literally save your driving record. Let me be absolutely crystal clear with you about what is happening on American highways right now. We are not talking about minor adjustments that police officers will overlook during some kind of grace period. We are not talking about gentle warnings or educational citations. We are talking about strict, immediate enforcement with fines starting the moment you make a mistake that was perfectly legal just days ago. Law enforcement across the country has been quietly preparing for this enforcement push. Officers have received specific instructions about which behaviors to prioritize. Patrol cars are being deployed to the locations where the most violations are expected. Traffic courts are being prepared for a massive influx of citations. And the average American driver has absolutely no idea what is coming. The drivers who will be hit hardest are not the dangerous ones. They are the experienced ones, the ones who have driven safely for decades, the ones who have built up driving habits over a lifetime behind the wheel. Because those habits, those patterns of behavior that have served them perfectly well for 30 or 40 years, are now technically illegal under the updated enforcement standards. Some of these drivers will receive penalty points that push their insurance premiums up by hundreds of dollars annually. Some will face mandatory traffic school requirements. A smaller but significant number will face license reviews that could threaten their ability to drive independently. And it is all about to start happening immediately. The first major rule change is the one that will catch the most drivers off guard. Construction zone enforcement has been fundamentally transformed in ways that almost no American driver knows about. Previously, the doubled fine rule for construction zones was triggered only when workers were physically present and actively working in the zone. You would see signs that said fines doubled when workers are present. If the crew was on a lunch break, if the work had paused for the day, if you drove through at 6 in the morning before anyone arrived on site, the doubled fine standard technically did not apply. Every experienced driver in America understood this distinction. That distinction no longer exists. Under the updated enforcement standard now being applied across highway construction zones nationally, fines are doubled at all times in any designated construction zone. The presence of orange signs indicating an active construction zone is now legally sufficient to trigger the enhanced penalty. It does not matter whether a single worker is visible. It does not matter what time of day or night you drive through. It does not matter whether any construction activity is visibly occurring at the moment you pass through. If orange construction zone signs are posted, enhanced fines apply. And it gets worse. Enforcement officers have publicly confirmed that they are strictly issuing citations to any driver exceeding the posted construction zone speed limit by even 1 mile per hour above the posted limit. There is no buffer. There is no informal grace zone. 1 mile per hour over the construction zone speed limit is now a citable offense subject to doubled fine penalties. What this means practically for your daily driving is straightforward. The moment you see orange highway signs indicating a construction zone, you treat that zone as if an entire crew of workers is standing directly beside your vehicle. You bring your speed down to the posted limit immediately. You maintain that speed throughout the entire designated zone, not just in the sections where you can see active work. And you do not resume your normal highway speed until you have fully cleared the zone and passed the signs indicating the construction zone has ended. The financial impact of a single construction zone violation under the new doubled fine standard can reach several $100s depending on your state. Add insurance premium increases triggered by a moving violation on your record, and the actual cost of one moment of inattention in a construction zone can easily exceed $1,000 in total consequences. This is the rule change that will generate the most disbelief from experienced American drivers. If you have been driving for 20, 30, or 40 years, the merging behavior you were taught and have practiced your entire driving life may now constitute a traffic violation. The old common practice of slowing down significantly or coming to a near stop at the end of an entry ramp before attempting to merge into highway traffic has been officially updated in multiple states. Under the updated rules now being enforced, you are legally required to use the full length of the entry ramp to accelerate and match the speed of existing highway traffic before completing your merge. Deliberately slowing down or stopping at the merge point is now classified as creating a dangerous traffic condition. Let that sink in. The merging technique your driving instructor taught you decades ago is now considered dangerous driving behavior under current law. If you slow to a near stop on an entry ramp and the vehicle behind you must brake suddenly or swerve to avoid a collision, you bear legal responsibility for creating that hazard. This can result in a traffic citation, even if no collision actually occurs. If a collision does occur behind you as a direct result of your sudden slowdown at the merge point, you can be held legally liable for that accident and any injuries or property damage that result. Law enforcement officers are specifically monitoring entry ramps during peak commute hours as part of the current enforcement priority push. Officers positioned to observe on-ramp behavior are watching for exactly this pattern of dangerous slow merging. The correct merging procedure under current traffic law requires you to use the acceleration lane fully. You must match the speed of the vehicles already traveling in the lane you are merging into. You must signal your intention to merge clearly and early. You must identify your gap in traffic and complete your merge smoothly at highway speed without creating a speed differential that forces other drivers to react suddenly. If the entry ramp is too short, or if traffic conditions make it genuinely impossible to reach highway speed before the ramp ends, you should yield completely and wait for a safe gap rather than forcing a dangerous low-speed merge into high-speed traffic. What you absolutely cannot legally do under the current standard is slow to a crawl or stop at the merge point and then attempt to nose into moving traffic. Practice this. Adjust your habits. Because this is an enforcement priority right now. This next section contains information that could have serious legal consequences for millions of American drivers, particularly those managing chronic health conditions with prescription medications. You need to pay very close attention to what I am about to tell you. Law enforcement officers now have expanded legal authority to request chemical testing of drivers suspected of impairment, even when no alcohol consumption is involved. Specifically, officers can now request a blood test or saliva test from any driver they have reasonable cause to believe may be impaired. And the suspected impairment can be attributed to prescription medication rather than alcohol or illegal substances. Driving under the influence of impairing substances has always technically included prescription medications. What has changed dramatically is the enforcement priority, the expanded officer authority to request testing, and the updated thresholds used to determine whether detected medication levels constitute legal impairment. Certain categories of prescription medications that are commonly taken by American adults for legitimate medical conditions can now result in a driving under the influence charge if they are detected in your system above specific threshold levels. These categories include certain sleep aids and sedatives, certain anti-anxiety medications in the benzodiazepine family, certain prescription pain medications including opioid-based medications, some antihistamines prescribed for allergy management, and certain muscle relaxants. Let me be absolutely clear about something critically important. Nothing in this guide is suggesting that you stop taking medications prescribed by your physician. You should never adjust, reduce, or discontinue any prescription medication without explicit guidance from the doctor who prescribed it. Doing so can have serious and dangerous medical consequences. What this update means is that you need to have a direct and honest conversation with your prescribing physician about your specific medications and their known effects on driving ability. Ask your doctor directly whether any of your current prescriptions carry warnings about operating motor vehicles. Ask whether the dosage timing can be adjusted to minimize impairment during hours when you need to drive. Ask whether any of your medications are known to produce effects that could appear as impairment to a law enforcement officer, even if you feel subjectively alert and capable. Your doctor can also provide documentation of your prescription medications that you should keep in your vehicle. If you are ever stopped and tested, having documentation showing your prescriptions are legally obtained and properly managed gives you important legal protection. Ignorance of medication-related impairment laws is not a legal defense in court. Protecting yourself requires proactive communication with your healthcare provider. Most American drivers believe they already understand distracted driving laws. You cannot text while driving. You cannot make calls without a hands-free device. You have heard this for years and you believe you are compliant with the law. But the definition of prohibited distracted driving behavior has now been significantly expanded in most states. And the expanded definition is catching drivers who genuinely believe they are following the law. Here is the critical change you must understand. Simply holding your mobile phone in your hand while operating a vehicle is now a citable offense in most states, regardless of whether you are actively using the device. You do not have to be texting. You do not have to be making a call. You do not have to be looking at the screen. The act of holding the phone in your hand while the vehicle is in operation is itself the violation. This rule applies even when your vehicle is completely stopped at a red light. It applies when you are stopped in slow-moving traffic. It applies in a parking lot if your engine is running. The phone must be completely out of your hand and either mounted in an approved dashboard or windshield holder, placed in a cup holder, stored in a bag, or positioned anywhere that does not involve your hand making contact with the device. Law enforcement officers have received specific instruction to prioritize observation of drivers for this behavior. Officers are looking for phones in drivers' hands during traffic stops, at intersections, and during routine highway patrol. They are watching at every red light. They are watching at every stop sign. They are watching during every traffic backup. First offense fines begin at approximately $150 in most jurisdictions and increase substantially for repeat violations. Multiple distracted driving citations within a specified period can trigger automatic license review proceedings and mandatory driver improvement courses. The practical solution is simple and requires only a small adjustment to your routine. Purchase an inexpensive phone mount that attaches to your dashboard or windshield. Before you start your engine, place your phone in the mount or store it out of reach. If you need to make a call, connect through your vehicle's Bluetooth system or use a wired or wireless earpiece that allows fully hands-free operation. If you need to look at directions or respond to a message, pull completely off the road in a legal parking area before picking up your device. One inexpensive phone mount eliminates your exposure to this violation entirely. Parking regulations near intersections and crosswalks have been updated, and the change is specific enough that drivers who park in familiar spots they have used regularly may find themselves receiving citations without understanding why. The updated standard in most jurisdictions now requires that no vehicle may be parked within 25 feet of a marked or unmarked crosswalk at an intersection. In many areas, the previously enforced distance was 15 to 20 feet from the crosswalk. That additional 5 to 10 feet may seem minor on paper, but consider how many parking spots near intersections that drivers have used for years now fall within the prohibited zone under the updated measurement. The reasoning behind the increased required distance is pedestrian safety. Vehicles parked too close to crosswalks create visual obstruction that prevents both drivers and pedestrians from seeing each other clearly before the pedestrian steps into the roadway. Increasing the required clear distance improves sightlines and reduces pedestrian accidents at intersections. But here is the critical point from an enforcement perspective. Officers do not need to observe any near miss or safety incident to issue a parking citation. Simply measuring the distance between your parked vehicle and the crosswalk marking is sufficient to issue a fine if your vehicle falls within the prohibited zone. Before parking near any intersection, measure your distance from the crosswalk carefully. Count the distance with your eyes. Look for painted curb markings that may indicate no parking zones. When in any doubt at all, move further from the intersection to ensure you are clearly outside the 25-foot restricted zone. A parking citation seems minor until you calculate the fine plus any insurance reporting implications. Failure to yield violations have always been part of traffic law. What has changed dramatically is the severity of the consequences and the specific behaviors now being prioritized for enforcement. Failing to yield the right-of-way to a pedestrian in any marked or unmarked crosswalk now carries a minimum fine of $200 in most states for a first offense. Beyond the financial penalty, a failure to yield violation now results in a mandatory point added to your driving record. In several states, a failure to yield conviction also triggers a mandatory traffic improvement course requirement that must be completed within a specified time frame. The license review threshold has been tightened significantly. 3 failure to yield violations within any 18-month period can now automatically trigger a formal license review proceeding. In most jurisdictions, a license review can result in additional testing requirements, license restrictions, or in cases where a pattern of dangerous behavior is documented, license suspension. Crosswalks that do not have traffic signals are specifically highlighted in current enforcement priorities. Drivers are legally required to yield to pedestrians in any marked crosswalk, regardless of whether a signal is present. If a pedestrian is in the crosswalk or clearly preparing to enter the crosswalk, you must stop and yield completely before proceeding. This is the rule change that will affect millions of American drivers who pass through urban areas, school zones, and shopping districts every single day. The old habit of rolling slowly through a crosswalk because there are no signals is now a serious citable offense with mandatory points and potential license consequences. The minimum safe and legally referenced following distance standard on highways has been updated in official law enforcement guidance documents across the country. This is a change that every single highway driver in America needs to understand immediately. The previous common standard of 1 car length of following distance for every 10 miles per hour of travel speed has been replaced with a time-based standard. The current legally referenced minimum following distance is now 3 seconds of travel time between your vehicle and the vehicle directly ahead under normal dry road conditions. Under adverse weather conditions, including rain, snow, fog, or ice, the recommended and legally referenced standard increases to 6 seconds of following distance. That is double what is required in normal conditions. And officers will be enforcing this standard during inclement weather. How do you measure 3 seconds of following distance? Watch the vehicle ahead of you pass a fixed point, such as a road sign, a bridge support, or a lane marking. Count the seconds from when they pass that point until you reach the same point. If you reach the fixed point in less than 3 seconds, you are following too closely. If you are involved in a rear-end collision and an investigation determines you were following too closely based on the current standard, you bear automatic liability for the collision, regardless of the actions of the driver ahead of you. This is not a minor technicality. It is the legal standard that determines financial and legal responsibility when accidents occur on American highways. Give yourself space. 3 seconds minimum, 6 seconds in bad weather. It is the simplest and most effective legal protection available to every driver on every highway in America. You might be wondering why all of these changes are being implemented at the same time. Why right now? Why all at once? The answer reveals something important about modern American traffic enforcement. State and local governments across the country have faced massive budget shortfalls in recent years. Traffic violation fines represent one of the most reliable revenue streams available to municipal and state treasuries. By updating enforcement standards and expanding the definitions of citable behavior, governments can significantly increase revenue without raising taxes or implementing new fees. But there is another factor at play here. Modern enforcement technology has made it dramatically easier for officers to identify violations and issue citations. License plate readers, traffic cameras, and integrated database systems now allow officers to process violations at a speed and scale that was impossible just a decade ago. The capacity for enforcement has expanded and the regulations have expanded with it. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is simply the practical reality of how American traffic enforcement has evolved. And the only protection available to ordinary drivers is to know the rules and follow them precisely. Before you drive anywhere tomorrow, there are specific actions you must take to protect yourself from these enforcement priorities. First, install a phone mount in your vehicle if you do not already have one. This single $15 accessory eliminates your exposure to the expanded distracted driving rules entirely. Place your phone in the mount before you start your engine. Connect to your vehicle's Bluetooth system if you need to make calls. Second, schedule a conversation with your prescribing physician about any medications you take regularly. Bring a list of your prescriptions. Ask specifically about driving impairment warnings. Request documentation you can keep in your vehicle. Third, practice the new merging technique on your next highway trip. Use the full acceleration lane. Match highway speed before merging. Break the habit of slowing down at the merge point. Fourth, measure your parking distance from crosswalks at any intersection where you regularly park. If you are within 25 feet, find a new parking spot. Update your habits to use parking locations that are clearly outside the restricted zone. Fifth, count your following distance on your next highway drive. Make sure you maintain at least 3 seconds of space at all times. Increase to 6 seconds whenever weather conditions deteriorate. Sixth, review your daily driving routes for construction zones. Every orange sign now triggers doubled fines regardless of whether workers are present. Adjust your speed accordingly the moment you see construction zone markings. Here is something I want you to think about carefully. Most American drivers will not see this information before they drive tomorrow. They will not know about the construction zone changes. They will not know about the merging requirements. They will not know about the phone in hand rule. They will not know about the expanded parking distance. They will not know about the new yield enforcement. They will not know about the updated following distance standard. And many of those drivers will be your friends, your family members, your coworkers, and your neighbors. They will receive fines they could have avoided. They will get points on their records that will affect their insurance for years. Some of them will face license reviews that could disrupt their entire lives. Share this information with every driver in your life. Send it to your spouse. Send it to your parents. Send it to your adult children. Send it to your coworkers. The cost of sharing this information is nothing. The cost of failing to share it could be hundreds or thousands of dollars in fines for the people you care about most. The bottom line is this: American highway rules have changed dramatically and immediately. Construction zones now carry doubled fines at all times regardless of worker presence. Slowing to a stop at highway merge points is now a citable traffic violation. Holding your phone in your hand while driving is now illegal even at red lights. Parking within 25 feet of a crosswalk at an intersection is now strictly enforced. Failure to yield carries mandatory points and potential license review consequences. Following distance standards have been formally updated and apply in liability determinations across the country. You are now informed. You are now prepared. And that preparation is genuinely valuable because most drivers sharing the road with you tomorrow will not know any of this. Drive carefully. Stay current with your state's specific DMV requirements. Consult your physician about any prescription medications you take regularly, and make the small practical adjustments that keep you on the right side of every one of these updated regulations. For all the latest breaking news on American highway rules, traffic enforcement updates, and the stories that protect ordinary American drivers, like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications. Stay informed, stay alert, drive safely. This content is provided for general educational and informational purposes only. Traffic laws vary by state and jurisdiction. Always consult your specific state DMV website and qualified legal counsel for guidance applicable to your individual situation.